Your process hazard analysis. This is kind of the backbone to the PSM element or the PSM standard. And basically, this is bringing a team together, and I'll go over the requirement of who all needs to be there. But this is bringing a team together and analyzing and walking the process and looking at every aspect of that process from start to finish, and basically evaluating, what are the hazards? How are we going to mitigate the hazards? How are we going to make sure that if this fails, what's the contingency plan? What do we do if an employee is exposed, and things like that? And that's where the PHA could. I've been involved with PHAs that have taken months to finish, from start to finish. And that's just because of the complexity of the system that was involved, or the complexity of the process that was involved. But basically what you're looking at is the number of potentially affected employees, what's the age of the process, the history of the process, has it had any incidents, and what was the result of those incidents. All this has to be documented within the PHA itself. There are a couple methodologies that you can use, and these are all mandated by OSHA here. The one that I'm extremely familiar with is your FMEAs, or your fail mode and effects analysis. And again, this is depending on the complexity of your system. I've also used the checklist system, and that's for something that is pretty self-explanatory, only has one chemical involved, pretty straightforward in one pipe and out the other type of a system that doesn't have a lot of introduction of other moving parts into it. That's a checklist is really good for that. You can use a combination, the what if checklist, and basically you're asking the question, what if this happens? What do we do? What if this happens? So that one's pretty self-explanatory as well. At the same time, when they talk about the different methodologies, you also have to address these points here. What are the hazards? Have you had any previous incidents within that process? What are the consequences if something fails? Your engineering controls, your admin controls, human factors. Okay, what if somebody pushes the wrong button? The procedure says to turn this button first, then push this, and they do it backwards. That's all a human factor consideration. The other part too here, involving the team. It could be, obviously you have to have a facilitator who is knowledgeable in the methodology that you use. Also, we always brought in maintenance, the maintenance crew. We always brought in an operator, the operator who was going to run that process. That way they can tell us that, hey, this works and this doesn't, or here's what I've seen, with the process. Engineers are a great resource when it comes to doing a PHA. And then if you notice that at least every 5 years after the initial PHA is done, you have to revalidate that PHA. And this is a requirement of OSHA. You have to go in every 5 years and revalidate that, walk the process again, bring those same departments in and have them take a look at the process, make sure nothing has changed. And this is where I would recommend a third party coming in and taking a look at this, because not only is it a fresh set of eyes, but there's a lot involved with this about revalidating PHAs. I've been involved with some very complex ones that were, on an Excel spreadsheet that were a couple hundred lines long. And so it's a lot of, there's a lot of information on a PHA. Your operating procedures. These are your SOPs. They have to be developed, implemented, and trained to. That's one of the biggest things that happens is you can develop these SOPs, but if you don't train to them, then they're not really, they're just pieces of paper with words on them, okay? And so what you have to include in these SOPs is, what do you do during initial startup? What do you do during normal operations? What if you have an emergency? What's the shutdown procedure for that? What's a normal shutdown procedure? Okay. What if you have a turnaround? What if the plant shuts down and you have to, or a process goes offline for a moment? All that has to be documented and written down and trained to. Operating limits. Where are the safe operating limits? And again, a lot of this is going to fall from your PSI, your process safety information from the SDS. What are some safety and health considerations, right? And so having all this documented, and again, I can't stress this enough, but training to it is that critical portion of writing all these operating procedures.